Hello, everybody. This is my first YouTube broadcast of all time. And as you can see in the title, I'm just going to be talking about some of the dangers of steroids. I'm basically going to be telling my story and how they affected my life and why, as you hear from so many influencers and fitness gurus out there, why they tell you to be so selective in deciding if you're going to go down that path. Um, okay, I'm 37 years old. My name is Gary Salvatella. I'm a landscaper. I was a lot bigger at one point. I don't know if you can actually see, but yep, that was me. And I was a big guy, and that was about 8 years ago, or my late 20s, I'd say. But yeah, my story basically starts. I was always a skinny kid in sports, a lanky kid. I was a goalie. Then I got into golf in my teens. Never worked out. Was always had that lanky build, like the lanky Justin Bieber build, kind of, And in different sports, I played other sports. I was, made fun of a little bit for being skinny or just picked on. But I was always uncomfortable with my physique at that point. And it's something that affected me, in a bad way. The body dysmorphia, it was horrible. And so towards the end of my later teens, I wanted to be a police officer. That never ended up happening because I developed a drug addiction at that point before I was ever introduced to anabolics or anything, to prescription pills. That led me to end up doing jail time for a year. I was sentenced to 1 year when I was around 20 years old, 12 months to serve in a county jail. During that time, I started working out fanatically while in jail to pass the time, while in there. Obviously, I was not on hormones at that point. And yeah, I worked out hard, did the water bags and everything, gained a little size. In retrospect, I look back at it and that's when I should have never started this next chapter in my life. I met a guy in there. Gear was a little harder to get at the time. You couldn't just order it on the internet. So I knew a guy. He got me my first cycle, a Sustanon 250, the ones in the little ampules. They come from the Karachi ones, the Pakistan ones. I don't know if anybody remembers those. But got out. I messed with pro hormones a little up to this point, but didn't see crazy results. I hopped on that first cycle of the Sustanon that my buddy got, and the results were immediately, amazing. I don't know how to put it. The results were immediately they changed my physique at that point. My early 20s at that point, doing the Sustanon, doing the test. Then I jumped into some Anadrol, the Anadrol 50s, and I saw my strength and size go way up from there. I was about 23 years old, deadlifting 605 and benching 350 for 8 reps on the flat bench. And yeah, I blew up. I was dirty bulking at the time too, just eating shit along with the Anadrolin test. And I blew up, like I said, 250, 260 at certain points with those crazy lifts. My size got crazy. My parents hated it at the time. I wasn't addicted to pills anymore in that sense. I had beat that addiction, but now I was addicted to anabolics. And my mother said, I remember she couldn't see my neck. She said she saw muscles growing in my feet. And I know what she meant. It changed my whole physique. And at that time, and as I was going through my 20s, I developed another pill addiction to benzodiazepines this time, to Xanax and Valium type stuff. So combined with the high doses of anabolics and the benzodiazepines, my life started to go downhill from there again. I started experimenting with Tren, the all-powerful Tren, as Derek would say. But no, I mean, that compound, I did notice a lot of crazy results from the orals and the high dose test. I'm talking about 1.5 grams to 2 grams a week of test. Hopping to the Tren, I noticed further gains, further hardness, but the psychological effects did, come with it. The Tren sweats, the no sleep, the horrible sleep. I remember I got bad sleep on Tren, but it did change. It almost felt like the fat was melting off your body while the muscle was being preserved and keeping you hard, your muscles hard. And that's why it's a cattle steroid, Finaplex. It was originally developed as a cattle steroid, and to basically do that to cattle, add muscle while keeping them lean, to some point, add muscle tissue, and that's what it did to me. I felt like a walking piece of cattle, jacked walking piece of cattle. But like I said, I ended up staying on those high doses of hormones through my 20s, not realizing how negatively it was affecting my HPTA at the time, and I just didn't care. Kept doing the benzodiazepines. That led me into more trouble. At that time, I could never keep relationships with women. It definitely was the anabolics and the drugs, doing that, I believe. In hindsight, I'm happy I didn't have a child during those years. And the reason I didn't have a child is probably because of the suppression to my HPTA from the anabolics. So I do look back and I thank God for that, because I am 37 now and I am glad I don't have a child. But fast forwarding into my early 30s, with the high dose anabolics and the benzos, led me to more jail time. I was sentenced to an 18-month sentence and a 9-month sentence, or actually 9 originally and then 18, that I had to serve consecutively, basically, which means I had to serve the 9-month sentence, get transported to another facility to serve another 18-month sentence. And in hindsight, those were the only times that I wasn't abusing anabolics, because I didn't have access to them in jail. So, and I will say I got my testosterone free and total levels tested upon release, and I had low T at that point in my early 30s. So I hopped back on anabolics, higher doses of tests, up towards around 1,000 probably. The VAR, I started doing Anavar heavily at that point. I really liked that compound. The Tren, I didn't really mess with that anymore, but, through my early 30s, after those, 2 other prison sentences, I started thinking, I'm in my mid-30s at this point, I started thinking I wanted to have a child. I was with a girl at that point that I wanted to have a child with, and I realized I would have to be off the gear to make that happen. And so I bounced around with TRT. I was prescribed TRT through my early 30s. My doctor was actually very generous with it. I think she was prescribing me up towards 200 a week, which we all know that's not really a TRT dose, but I mean, it's a little higher. So I'm in my early 30s at this point, and on the TRT, and like I said, I'm 37 now, and I am a year and a half off any HPTA suppressing compound. A year and a half off taking any type of thing that would suppress my HPTA axis. And I haven't had a test. My test came back a little, but I still had really bad SHBG and low LH. I just started some HCG that I picked up in Thailand, human chorionic gonadotropin, and I'm hoping that this is boosting me back. I want to stay on HCG, but it is very expensive. My health insurance won't cover it. They want like $2,000 for a month's supply, and I can't afford that. I tried clomiphene citrate, but I will warn anyone that I did not agree with it. It made me severely depressed. I did not like the feeling from clomid. I will be looking to jump onto enclomiphene. I see some promise in enclomiphene, which is one of the compounds that make up clomid, which is zuclomiphene and enclomiphene. Enclomiphene is just the compound itself without the zuclomiphene in it. But I know I kind of jumped around in my whole explanation of everything, but I'm 37 now with possibly permanent low T. I could maybe never have a child, even if I try. And to get big like that and be a mess, in and out of jail, fucking can't keep a relationship, a horny monster on Tren. That's another thing Tren did to me. It made me, your libido goes crazy. It's not even, I can't describe it. Like, I even agree with some of the things I've heard, specifically on More Plates, More Dates channel, about how I didn't feel like I was turning gay, but I could see how some people, like he said, their sexual preferences aren't satisfied, basically. So, and when you're on such high doses of the trenbolone esters, it makes you. I remember describing it like, I was in my mid-20s and I wanted to fuck all the old ladies I saw. And I never thought that way before doing Tren. It's like, why would I want to fuck an old lady? I got this European girlfriend at the time. I could pull some pussy if I wanted to, but I wanted to fuck old ladies. And I do see where he's coming from with that. But like I said, to the young guys out there just getting started in the gym, or even if you already did start on anabolics, I would suggest that you stop and you do any compound you can to not suppress your HPTA axis, which is basically your hormone producing organs of your body, so they do not get suppressed to the point where you can't come back. Because I may never be able to come back. I may never be able to have kids. You got George Clooney having kids at like 60 or 80, whatever. I might not be able to have one before 40. I might have screwed up my, reproductive system so bad from these powerful hormones, some that were meant to be for fucking animals, excuse my language, but I man, I just wish I had my 37-year-old self talking to my, mid-20s self, and I would have made a lot of different decisions. And yeah, just to the young guys out there, I just recommend that you really think before hopping on these hormones. Even SARMs will shut you down. We haven't even been able to research SARMs yet, so we really don't know a lot about them. That could be a disaster in itself. So just I'd keep it test boosters, natural test boosters that will not shut you down. That's what I would recommend. Unless you're gonna be on the Olympia stage, or seriously competing at a high level, and you want your life to go in that direction, I would recommend never touching hormones. And the proof is, you see what they do you see what low doses of Anavar, for instance, 5 milligrams, can do to a woman. How it can completely change her chemistry, her physiology. Imagine what high doses of high doses of animal steroids, boldenone, and tren, and compounds that weren't even made for humans. If 5 milligrams of Anavar can change a woman into a man, basically, imagine what these high doses, crazy high doses, in comparison to 5 milligrams of Anavar, can do to a man, can do to you. And it happened to me. And I'm just grateful that I never have to shut down my system again. I may have to be on TRT for the rest of my life, but I'm trying to get back naturally, with some HCG and possibly enclomiphene. But yeah, I don't want to have to be on TRT for the rest of my life. It's not the worst option, but that's how I feel. But yeah, anybody who supports this video or wants to hear anything from me, just hit me up on YouTube. I don't even know how to do these videos really, but I just wanted to put this out there as a warning. And yeah, everybody keep training.